Welcome to Vanguard Episode 3, where we will be talking about the plane crashes, the immigration, and the tariffs. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, so last week sometime, there was a plane crash in which a Army helicopter crashed into a jet that was trying to land at Reagan National Airport. What do you make of that, Davey?
I think, by all appearances, it was an accident. We have really no reason to believe it would be intentional or terrorist activity or any of that. Nothing surfaced. But at the same time, it is still kind of an odd situation because normally, plane crashes are actually really rare, especially commercial plane crashes, statistically speaking. And normally military is also trained really well, and the two pilots, inside that military helicopter were pretty experienced pilots as far as it goes. So it's hard to imagine how this accident could have occurred, but I've also seen that the operator at the air traffic control tower, he was trying to do the job of two people because they're severely understaffed at the moment. And despite it being a clear night, which really makes it seem like it would have been avoided.
Yeah. I mean, it really does sound like an accident. It is kind of ironic, though, that Trump fired the FAA director the day before. Not that it has any correlation whatsoever, but it does make it ironic at the very minimum. We've also got, over the past week, we've had many, many different micro accidents within plane crashes. We also have where a small private plane crashed in the New England area just over the weekend, where two individuals were flying, and it just, right after takeoff, it crashed abruptly and took out an entire street. So just very interesting. There's 5 or 6 different instances, whether between ground crew or actual plane crashes, where there's been just collisions and problems with plane traffic. So very interesting at the very least.
It's crazy how they all happened at once, and it really does make you wonder. I mean, the suspicious part of me is kind of thinking, what are all the possibilities? What are the odds that it is actually an accident? But, I mean, as far as the evidence goes, it does actually seem to be accidents. It's just very odd.
Yeah.
The timing and all.
Yeah. To some degree, I wonder if these things are happening more frequently, and it's just now we have a freer press under Trump, if that's just surfacing more, or if because of the major plane crash in Reagan National Airport, now all of a sudden we have more of these stories in the news because everyone's sort of morbidly intrigued by these plane crashes. I don't know.
It does make you wonder, but you do see plenty of accidents like this on the news beforehand, so
true.
I'm really not sure it made that much of a difference, the big plane crash outside of Reagan.
Yeah, it's just very sad. But at the same time, this is one of the big reasons why Trump has complained so much about DEI hiring in the FAA. And while the plane pilots may or may not have been affected by this, whenever you lower those standards to meet a quota of sorts, it does invariably cause the quality of those pilots to decrease by nature, because you're not setting the bar at the highest, choosing the highest people. And so it just really affects your quality of plane pilots.
And I've heard a theory, and I've not seen any evidence to back this up, but it is a theory that because of the DEI hiring, that's one of the reasons the air traffic control were understaffed. Because when you're trying to only hire, black women, then you're going to get a lot less people who are, worthy applicants by your standards.
That's definitely true. The air traffic control center was understaffed. And I think that there should be a formal investigation as to why this was caused. And hopefully we could prevent this in the future. Trump has already done away with a lot of the DEI hiring, and hopefully that'll continue so that we have quality over wokeism at the very least. And so I'm very optimistic, but at the same time, we need to remember those who have lost their lives as a result of this. And so we're fighting for people who could be affected by this, and we are trying to bring back normality to America and actually bringing back merit-based work instead of work based off of race, skin color, gender, so on and so forth.
And even if this has nothing to do with DEI hiring in any way, it still reminds me of the consequences DEI hiring could have, because when you put those people in those jobs, you can get terrible results like this, and it can affect the lives of a lot of people, and it can end lives. And it's a real
absolutely.
problem.
Yeah. Okay, so just on Sunday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio went to Panama City to visit Panamanian President Jose Raul Moreno. And basically, what he did there was he's going to visit the Panama Canal and talk to him about the Panama Canal. He also brought up the deportation flights, and he's trying to smooth things over with that. What are your thoughts, Davey?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I'm really pretty excited to see how Trump plays out the whole taking over, well, annexing Greenland and taking the Panama Canal for ownership by America. I think that could really help our economy and trade, and I love how economy-focused Trump is being. This is not just about grabbing the land, this is about Trump's plans for increasing U.S. trade. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because Trump hasn't, strictly speaking, said he's not going to use the military. He said he would much prefer to just buy the land and, pay straight money for it, as opposed to having to use force. But Trump has also shown a ton of power this term so far, and I believe if he has his heart set on taking Greenland and the Panama Canal, he'll do it somehow or another.
Yeah. Then, too, President Moreno has actually made it clear that the Panama Canal isn't actually on the table. But obviously, we've seen that Latin American presidents can change their minds based off of what Trump says or what Trump actually does for actions. So it's worth noting, at least, that the president has said it isn't on the table. But we'll see. Maybe that won't matter to Trump.
Yeah, I mean, both Greenland and Panama seem very closed off to the ideas of Trump taking ownership. But then again, you look at how powerful America is compared to both of those countries, and the fact that Trump is willing to use that power, and you can't help but wonder what exactly will happen. I think Trump, if he has his mindset on it, it will happen.
Yeah. Well, and additionally to that, we actually have a very, very, very good claim to the Panama Canal, simply because we were the original owners of it. We built it. We designed it. We paid for it. We actually paid fair wages to the laborers who worked on the Panama Canal. And so for them to say that, hey, this is ours, isn't that far of a claim. And I believe that we actually can make a good claim to that. And as for Greenland, we actually have a really good claim to that too, simply because the majority of it was discovered by an American, and one way or another, it was given up.
Yeah, and I'm assuming both of those facts will surface as Trump makes progress towards buying Greenland and Panama.
Yeah.
It'll definitely remain a controversy, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I think, though, everything Trump does in his presidency will be a controversy. It's just a matter of whether or not that is a good thing to do or a bad thing to do. At this point, there is no policy that he makes that everyone agrees on. Even 80-20 issues, I don't think Democrats will agree on for Trump, simply because it's Trump.
I see a lot of 80-20 issues, though. And there's a lot less 50-50 Republican versus Democrat issues that I've seen in the Trump presidency. The immigration crisis, for example, Trump actually working on that, that's really not too controversial an issue. Some people will have a problem with it, but overall Democrats and Republicans see the negative effects and want this problem fixed. I feel like that's a lot of issues that Trump's doing. But then there are also definitely some very Trump moves that are closer to 50-50 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you do see a lot of Democrats complaining about the immigration issues, and I think that they will complain about it a lot, but in the end, they know it's the right move. They know that that's the way it should be, and I think that they need to realize, and some of them do, I think, that in the end, you can't be a nation without laws, even if those laws are something that you disagree with. If you have a nation without laws, it's no longer a nation. It's simply mob rule.
And I think a lot of people will start changing their minds to Trump this term, because in the same way, everyone was excited about Biden, but when they felt in their lives what he was doing and felt all the negative effects that came from his presidency, they turned on him, and his approval ratings went really, really far down. And I think the opposite will happen to Trump. because what Trump's
Yeah.
doing is, historically speaking, building a better economy. I think people,
Yeah.
when they feel that in their daily lives, when they see their taxes go down and see housing go down, I think they'll really appreciate him.
Yeah, I think they will in the long run, but I'm simply worried about the more immediate effects. What's going to happen whenever they see all of these trade deficits and all of these import taxes all of a sudden skyrocket? Everyone feels the immediate effects, but not many people see the long-term effects. And so I worry about Trump simply from the short-term effects. People get a bad impression of him, and if enough people get a bad impression of him, it might not go so well.
Yeah. Although at this point, I don't know what they would do against Trump.
That's
so
true.
many people had a bad impression of Biden by the end of his presidency. And he still wrote
Yeah.
out the end of his presidency, making a bunch of moves that even the Democrats frowned upon most of the time. So
True. That's very true.
Alright guys, that is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back next time for more.